Hello, this is Dr. Dami Kabiawu, and I'm going to be talking to you about one Excel array function called frequency. Frequency is used to build a frequency table. It allows you to count the number of observations that fall within a specific range. That range is set up in Excel in what are called bins. So, the data set I have here is 200 values long, and it ranges from 0 to 50. So I'm going to split it out so that I have 10 buckets or groupings. All the data points that fall between 0 and 5 will be counted into one bucket, 5 and 10 into another bucket, and so on and so forth. To set this up in Excel, we'll start with the bins. First, I'm going to put in 5 because I want all values. The way Excel works, all values less than 5 will be counted into the bin that has the 5 in it. And at the same time, all the values that fall between 5 and 10 will be put in a second bucket. And the ones that fall between 10 and 15 will be put in the third bucket. Now, what I'm going to do is copy this pattern all the way to the bottom. Excel is beautiful in that when you give it a pattern, it recognizes the pattern and it often can use it to fill out information for you in a flash fill. So here is the pattern I'm giving Excel. Increment values by 5, and I'm just going to drag it down. It's going to continue that pattern for me until I get to 50, which is my largest number in here. Now that that's done, I'm going to use the frequency function to count the number of values. So to do that, I'm going to select all of my cells. It's an array. When you're working with an array, you need to mark the cells where your solution will go. This is an example of a multi-cell array. I want all of my values to go in here, therefore I'm going to mark it. Once it's marked, without pressing enter or doing anything, go into the address bar and type in your formula. Now the first cell you select is the active cell. It is the white one. The formula you type in the address bar automatically goes in there. So we're using Excel's frequency function. I'm going to select frequency. It needs the data that you want to count into buckets. My data is in column A, so I'm going to select column A. It also needs, actually, I'm just going to select the data because it might take processing time. Sometimes it slows down your computer when you select the whole column. Not all the time, but sometimes. And the bin range, since my data range has a label, I'm going to select my bin range with the label as well. Now, this is very important. Once you finish creating your array formula, you hold Shift, Control, and then press Enter. You have to hold Shift, Control, and Enter. If you're a Mac user, then you want to hold Shift, Command, and Enter. So Shift, Control, Enter. It automatically does the count for all of the buckets and puts them next to it. Now, important note, you don't need to put your final answers next to the bin. You could put it anywhere in theory, as long as you select enough cells to hold all the information that you do want. So, I'm going to center this again. Now I'm going to calculate relative frequency or frequency percentage. To do that, I'm going to sum the frequency to figure out how many observations I have, which of course I know that I have. I know that I have 200 observations. I created the data set, but it is gratifying to find out that, yep, Well, I am right. Now I'm going to create a formula for relative frequency using what we call relative addressing and permanent address in Excel. A relative address is one such as this, G2. When you copy a formula with a relative address, the location of the reference moves with the formula. I want to divide this by 200, but when I copy the formula down my spreadsheet, I want to divide all of the values on my spreadsheet by 200. So 200 will be in a permanent location, so that when I copy the formulas down, it will always reference 200 in the same cell G12. So I'm going to press F4. Sometimes you might need to do function F4. Sometimes if you don't have a computer that has that function F4, you might have to manually type the $. It's a rare computer though. Most of the time, pressing F4 will put the $, in front of your data so that you have a permanent address. So, by the way, if I press F4 again, you have a permanent row, but a relative column. F4 again, you have a permanent column, relative row, and relative column and row. So I'm going to press F4 and make it permanent, press enter, and then format this as a percent first, add a couple of zeros so that when I copy the formula down, it takes the formatting with it. Now I'm going to grab the edge, move my mouse to the edge. When it turns black, I'm going to drag it down. And then I'm going to double click in one of the cells to check that my formula works. It works, it's okay. And that's my relative frequency value. I can tell you that 8% of the data in my set falls between 45 and 50. 6% of the data in my samples falls between 5 and 10%. Now, once you've done this, you can go and change the labeling so that it makes sense, right? So this will be the upper class limit. We have the lower class limit. Now this is for information and it's done after the fact. So go from 0 to 5, then 5 to 10. And I'm going to copy this and I'm going to drag it down. Done. There you go. Double click, center the rest of my data, and I will say we're done with this one.